An interesting new investigation of the famous Boston Strangler story. Stranglers is an original 12-part weekly documentary podcast about the largest police investigation in Massachusetts history. Joining us now is the host of the podcast, Portland Helmick. Hi, Portland.
Hi, JJ. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Listen, this was an epic murder case in the 1960s. I know one man, Albert DeSalvo, confessed to all the murders, but he died decades ago. So why tell the story again?
Well, because all these years later, there are still so many unanswered questions. There are so many people who still say that maybe he was not the original Boston Strangler. He was not the only Boston Strangler. So that's one reason we're looking into it. Another is that we're trying to put a human face on who these victims were. So often when crimes like these happen, there's a lot of attention paid to the killer, but there's not a lot of attention paid to the victims. That's another reason, and I would say the final reason is that we can get into so much detail in a podcast that you can't get into in a film. We're going to have 12 episodes. Each is about 30 to 45 minutes long, so we have the opportunity to tell an 8 to 9 hour saga here.
Wow, yes, an in-depth look then. So as a listener, do I need to know anything about the story to be able to follow along?
You really don't need to know anything. We understand that some people that are going to be listening to this have absolutely no context whatsoever, so we're providing the context. However, if you do know something about the Boston Strangler case, I would encourage you to rethink it, because there's no way that you know everything that we are going to be packing into these episodes. We are going into so much detail. We're pulling in archival audio from the 1960s. We're interviewing sons of detectives who are connected with the case, the attorney who represented the self-confessed Boston Strangler, one of the major reporters on the case. We are taking a very comprehensive look at this.
Very interesting. You know, I mean, this case is, what, 50-odd years old at this point. Do you feel like you've been able to uncover anything new?
That's what's fascinating. We actually have, all these years later, one of the episodes, and I'm literally working on it right now, is about a man that most people have never heard of, who in the 1960s, early 1960s, was convicted of a murder in New York that was so similar to the first 5 Boston stranglings that the detective who interrogated him in New York long believed until his dying day that that man was the original Boston Strangler. And so we're going in depth into that story, and you can't miss it. It's episode number 5.
Portland, thank you so much for joining us and giving us a preview of what to expect on Stranglers.
Thank you so much, JJ. My pleasure.
Yes, thank you. So, pretty interesting, huh, Sean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Boom. Hi, you're wearing something new now. It's like I Dream of Jeannie.
So this podcast,
Yeah.
it's available now online, and there's 10 episodes. Right now, they've already released 4, so you can go download them. You can catch up now, because that cool 5th episode she was talking about is coming out next week.
Absolutely. I'm obsessed,
Yes.
obsessed with podcasts. So
They're
it's very
cool.
cool, especially when it has anything to do with Boston. I'm like, oh, I have to listen.
Oh.